From the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, to around the globe. You're listening to Shark Bite Biz, your exclusive place for business strategy, sales, marketing, and tech in the roaring 20s. And now, here's your host, David Strausser.
Welcome to the newest episode of Shark Bite Biz. I'm your glamorous host, David Strausser, and this is your place to learn how to grow a business during complete chaos. Today's show, it's about chaos. It's all about the sabotage. First, though, Android users, make sure you go to the Google Play Store. Download the Shark Bite Biz app. You'll find every audio and video version of this show there. Plus, you can buy our Dead House coffee directly from the app, or just head on over to deadhousecoffee.com. Use code SHARK. You'll get 20% off your order. And again, all the proceeds directly support us building the biggest and best show we possibly can. Last episode, in case you missed it, we had Alan Robert. He's the bassist and songwriter for the legendary metal band Life of Agony, as well as the creator of the Beauty of Horror adult coloring book series. It was an incredible interview. I think it's probably the longest episode we've ever had. It was incredible. Make sure you check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Now, let's get on to today's show. Leadership books are all about inspiring you to be an amazing leader, teaching you things from others' mistakes. Today's guest takes his own spin on that and teaches you what to watch out for. Too many people want you to fail at life. They want you to fail at business. They want to steal your money. They want to hold you back so that you cannot jump above them. Hey, it's just a fact of life, and today's guest got an incredible book and story giving us the lessons he learned the hard way during his life. So, who do we have today? None other than Mr. Brandon Wilson. Brandon Wilson is one of the world's best communicators and sought-after executive consultant. His impact has helped leaders realize daring pursuits, from building college campuses to addressing global wealth disparities. But more than this, Brandon is a survivor of leadership sabotage. His bout with betrayal, theft, and deceit cost him more than $600,000 and threatened his livelihood in an unthinkable way. Brandon's experience has taught him that despite a leader's talent level, having an inability to survive leadership sabotage can stop anyone from realizing their full potential. So, hey, let's bring Mr. Sabotage in himself. Let's get Mr. Brandon Wilson right on in here.
Business strategy.
Brandon, welcome to Shark Bite Biz. You, my friend, you just became Shark Bait.
Glad to be that.
Yeah, that's good. Did you find that in your research of the show?
I did. You have a lot of shark bait, and so I was looking forward to becoming shark bait.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I need to get like chum buckets or something like that, and you know, I don't know, maybe throw it at the screen digitally. I don't know. I want to figure something out. I need to expand on this for season 4, but we'll figure it out. Anyways, as you are well aware of, the very first question of this show, for some people, this is easy. Other people, I'd say most people, especially if they're on this show, because they're successful, you know, they look at me and they're like, oh, wow, that's a loaded question. But the very first question always is, hey, you know, what's your experience? What's your background? Where'd you come from? What have you done in life? What are you doing now? Basically, tell us what's all the magic that makes Brandon, Brandon.
Oh, goodness. Well, first, thanks for having me on the show. That is a loaded question. It is a loaded question.
Yes, it is.
But in answering it, I think it's important first for your viewers to know, and listeners to know, that I come with nearly 20 years of experience in what? In helping leaders achieve the bold and audacious. That's all I do. I started awesome. 20 years ago, actually in my 20s, doing that. Mm-hmm. my career started. So where have I been? I started out as a higher education consultant. My job was to get on a plane, jump out of it, not literally, into nowhere college town, and go and meet with the college president or the chancellor to learn about what barriers they were facing to achieving really big things on their campus.
Basically, they're barriers that were preventing growth.
That's right. It was preventing growth on their campus and their own professional growth. Some of their activities were change management in nature, where they were coming into a new system. Sometimes it was massive protest and unrest amongst the student population.
You never get that at colleges. What are you talking about, Brandon?
I was shocked when I heard. No, not at all. But even multi-victim killings, or going from being a college to becoming a university. Like, how do I do these things? And I was shocked at such a young age that people actually listened and took my advice. And even more surprised that they worked. So
that's awesome. That's amazing. Well, I mean, sometimes, your back's up against the wall and it's like, hey, we don't know what else to do. And that's where it's like, okay, I think that's maybe where people like you and me maybe stand out a little bit, because this show was born out of the creativity of like, hey, this COVID thing is real. It's not going away. Although I've been saying since about episode 10 that it looks like we're at the tail end of this pandemic. Here we are in episode 100. Here we are, episode 125. And it's like still here. But it was born out of creativity. Like, hey, I'm not going to let this sabotage, for a good word, sabotage my professional and personal growth. I've got to continue that. How do I network? And it's like, I'm just going to start a podcast, I guess. I've had the idea. I registered Shark Bite Biz. It would have been 6 years ago now. Just never ran with it because I went in a different direction as far as doing some live events, stuff like that. And that's kind of where, like, when you're pushing to the corner with nowhere else to go, I think people are more receptive to listening to out of the box ideas or different ideas that, a year or two ago, if I told my job, for example, like, hey, look, this is a personal project, but I'm starting a project. And they're like, no, David, you're like our executive for the Northeast. We don't want you out there doing that. Well, COVID changes everything. They're forcing the corner and you had to get creative. Do you think that was going on at all? I think with some those of colleges?
Well, I think I came into the room with a lot of credibility because of my background, having worked in student affairs. I worked very closely as a student. I worked in student affairs. I worked very, very closely with the president at Auburn University.
I thought you were going to say the president. That president. Okay, good.
not that president.
I was about to say, well, if you work with the president, I think you're qualified.
But I tell you, and they took the advice, and so we used that success to scale what is now known as Wilbron, which is a strategic communications agency that also provides management and organizational consultancy to help those executives and those companies also do really big, bold, and audacious things. So that's what I do. And where I'm going is actually a quick story behind that. Go ahead. I remember the first time that I received my first, $100,000 contract. And I was so pumped about it. I went out with a buddy of mine to celebrate. I said, hey, you got to celebrate. I am 100,000-aire. And we go and we eat. And that's a lot of money. It is a lot of money. And I sat down and I said, man, we got to celebrate. So we go to a diner and I raised my glass to toast. I said, man, here's to the good life. And he refused to toast me. And I said, what are you doing, man? And he said, listen, what would you say if I were to tell you that there was a guy who was going to radically transform the aerospace industry, the automobile industry, the battery industry. And he was talking about all these things this guy was doing. And I said, I tell you, out of your mind. It can't be one guy. He said, his name is Elon Musk. And this was before he was a household name. He said, look him up. He looked him up on his iPhone and showed me the articles. And he said, the reason I show you this and the reason I wanted to share this with you is because I want to challenge you to reevaluate your big. And I've committed my life to helping leaders now reevaluate what they believe is big to them. And so that is my entire career. That's where I'm headed. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book Sabotage, is because it's not that you understand or realize what you want to achieve that's big, but it's you gaining the eyes needed to see the obstacles in your way that stop you from achieving personal, professional, and business growth.
You know, one of the reasons why when I was 18, well, there was a lot of reasons why, but I moved from coal country, Pennsylvania to Tijuana, Mexico, was because where I was living in coal country, it was more closed-minded culture. You know, my whole life, I grew up, whether it was my grandfather, my dad, mom, you know, other people, friends, you know, boy, get your head out of the clouds, you know, and it's like, it's not in the clouds. Like, these are legit things. Like,
legit.
You know, like, because I've always been business orientated or travel orientated, and everybody's just, he's crazy. And that, you know, that's demoralizing for that.
There was a guy by the name of Dr. Wes Williams. At the time, he was the vice president of student affairs at Auburn while I was a student. He invited me on my first ride on a private jet, and we were literally in the clouds. And he stopped me and said, Brandon, I want you to look out the window. And now I want you to really look at the world that's underneath us. He said, Brandon, you can have it all. Now, he was speaking to a kid who grew up impoverished, a kid who battled with homelessness, a kid who saw all manner of crime growing up. And it was literally from having my head literally in the clouds that I started to believe that more was possible. So I'm glad you shared that.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, with me, a lot of similarities in my young adult life. Like, I lived from the age of 18 for, I don't know why, 7-8 years in Tijuana ghetto while I was a very young adult from a young age. You know, this is right after September 11th too. I moved down there in November 2001. And I mean, so a lot of those things that people, you know, that come from, you know, rougher areas, whether it's a small coal country, depressed town like I was born in, or some of the others place. I mean, I was right there in a large, major binational metro of San Diego there, Tijuana, and it was rough. But my point with telling the story about the head in the cloud thing was more about, like, everybody always told me growing up that, you know, your head's in the clouds, and that never really sat right with me. I mean, eventually it kind of beat me down, but in the back of my head, I knew like, hey, I can do anything. I see, you know, this is the time where you have like 18-year-olds that just write a script on a computer, and then all of a sudden, you know, it was the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, where like people are turning overnight millionaires just because of a website or whatever it may be. And it's like, there is stuff like that I could do. Now, I never found that to that degree, but I have a saying that I've always believed in that has derived from that part of my life, which is keep one eye on the present. You have to know what's going on now. Absolutely. You have to be grounded in reality, and you cannot ignore the needs of today. However, here's the but: you've got to keep one eye on the future. Okay, so one eye in the present, and then one eye in the future, because those dreams, whether you think it might be a pipe dream and your head's in the clouds, or whether it is something that is more realistic, whatever it is, you know, you need to make sure, because the decisions that you make today are going to impact drastically whether or not you land to where you want to be in the future, whether the future is a year, 5 years, or 10 years. It is one, it's not a straight line, but it is one line that will eventually have a cross paths to whether or not you make that goal or achieve that goal. And that's one of the biggest things that I think a lot of leaders struggle with the vision. They think too much of the now.
Well, they do. And I think opportunity favors the prepared mind. I mean, it only finds the prepared. And a lot of times we think dreams are dreams, but really dreams are ideas that's waiting to be implemented, that's waiting to be executed. And oftentimes we view them as dreams because we believe or convince ourselves that they're unpursuable. And I want you to think about it, unpursuable. And so earlier in our discussion, I said, congratulations for having the idea about Shark Bite Biz. And
you remembered.
Yeah. And I also need to...
You remember the show, I mean.
Of course. And I also congratulate you for allowing yourself to be put in the corner, because that's when we get uncomfortable. And one of the biggest saboteurs in our lives are ourselves. It's self-sabotage. And we allow ourselves to not be put in the corner, to live.
I could have ignored it.
Yeah, you could have ignored it and stayed comfortable.
Just like everybody else.
Stayed in the present. The problem is that the present is fleeting. Yep. It is inevitably fleeting. So if you spend all of your time and energy trying to preserve the present, you're really trying to harness air. And you're going to find yourself quickly, if you don't pursue your dreams, quickly become irrelevant, quickly become the person who said, he could have done, he should have done that. Yeah. And you start looking back at all of those lost opportunities. And I care about your viewers in that way. So I want to really make this statement that's important, that if you fail to pursue those ideas or those dreams, whatever you want to call them, it's tantamount to quitting. And as business owners and as professionals, the last thing we want to be identified as quitters. And so it's incumbent upon us to wake up and gin up the energy needed to pursue those dreams and those ideas, so we don't quit on ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely agree with everything you've said without a doubt. And like you're pointing out, I could have easily been my own sabotager, because I could have just ignored it and it's only going to be, I could use the break or whatever. That being said, I think a lot of people have the same idea. There's a lot of podcasts out there. Joe Rogan moving to Spotify definitely helps spur the industry too. But there's a lot of bad podcasts out there. And that's where I really went and I listened to a lot of shows. I listened to everything. I mean, I didn't listen to just business stuff. I checked out, from YouTube channels to podcasts, because, our main views do come from YouTube for this. So I did a lot of research, everything, political shows to business shows to everything. And when I say political, I'm talking like people on the right, people on the left. And to me, it was like, well, why are these people successful? Why do they have their show? Now, politics is something that does motivate a lot of people. So I think it is easier in those regards. I mean, it's hard. It takes a special type of person to really get motivated about business. So it makes it harder with the podcast to scale. But what I wanted to do was I did that research to make sure that I could scale the show to where, I'm not going to have a hot take on what the current administration did or didn't do today or tomorrow, where I could instantly get millions of views. It stays down, a couple thousand, but that's good because they're high quality individuals like yourself, guests like yourself. And I think it makes it more precise. I mean, we got a great community here that we're building, and I really, really love it. I think that open-mindedness too, of just, even listening to things I didn't agree with in the terms of hey, I want to see what they're saying here or there, just because, trying to define success. And I use that as a platform to launch. And there's some of the steps that I took in order to do what I'm doing. I mean, you find truth in that, it sounds like.
I found a lot of truth in that. And what I hear you say is how important it is to be vulnerable to discomfort. Like make yourself vulnerable to the unknowing, because that's the start of new information, new knowledge, new success, new accomplishments. And because I said this earlier, I care about your viewers and your listeners so much, I'll share a really personal story.
You said that so much more articulate than I did. See, I could have just summed it up right there in like 10 words. Okay. Instead, I rambled on for 3 minutes. That
is
you're
your
amazing.
idea. That is your idea. But I'll share a personal story about self-sabotage. And it's a personal one. Years ago, about 2014 or so, the date really escapes me. I had an idea, David. I said, I'm going to start a company that provides grocery delivery services to families. Can you believe it? I said, I'm going to create a technology that allows moms to type in their orders and allow other moms to go shop for them and then bring it to their doorstep. And I was pumped about it. And can you believe that idea was novel at the time? And I talked to my attorneys. I talked to some business advisors. Everybody said, man, this is a winner. You should do it. Yeah. And then I went to go do some research. I said, I wonder what the appetite of such a service is from customers. Yeah. And so I met with a consultant, with a researcher. We hit it off. And just as I was leaving the office, she said, hey, Mr. Brandon, I just want to let you know that I have another customer who hired me to do a similar business as you're talking about. And he's struggling. Oh, it's hard for him. I mean, he has like items piled up in his garage. I mean, it's tough. Are you sure you want to do this?
What did he have powered up in his garage?
Like just items that were waiting to ship or whatever. I mean, it was just like some delivery service that she had, from a person that ran a company that did product delivery. And I walked out of there and I said, do I really want to do this business? And so I went home, talked to my wife. My wife says, Brandon, we got too much going on. You're coming out of this bad business deal. You got, just whatever. Are you sure you want to do this? And I said, hold
on, 1 second. Yeah. Okay. Before I forget, you just said something that is going to be the next story you tell, which is you just got out of a bad business deal. But let's hear the rest of this story first.
We'll talk about that. and I sat down and I started to talk to myself. And I said, Brandon, what do you know about the grocery business? What do you know about the technology industry? Nothing. Why do you really want to do this? And I talked myself out of it. I said, I'm not going to do it. Yep. Literally across town, there was a guy named Bill Smith. Bill Smith was a high school dropout from a family of entrepreneurs. He had a similar idea and he executed it. I saw myself as somebody who couldn't do it. That was my perception of myself. He saw himself as a winner. That company, he grew that company to become Shipped. You probably heard about it. It sold for $500 million to Target. And to twist the knife in my heart a little bit further, I was in a private meeting with Brian Cornell, the chairman and CEO of Target. And he said, you want to know why I bought Shipped? Drum roll. He said, because I thought it was revolutionary that someone had a platform that would allow moms to shop for other moms. Can you believe it? Self-sabotage.
That is. Now, one of your trusted advisors, that woman, she did plant the seeds of doubt. Looking back, I would say that's somebody that maybe you want to not take business advice from again in the future.
No, we're not doing business with them.
Okay. Because, hindsight's 2020. Now, with that type of business, I mean, you will add that, yes, that was a wonderful idea. But those businesses are very, very, very hard to ramp up. And businesses before the pandemic, I mean, they were suffering. And that's part of the reason why I think mostly big tech. I mean, you have a few that grew out of it, like a Shift, for example.
Absolutely.
But mostly it's been bigger tech or money from big tech that has maintained a lot of these companies, because up until previous to the pandemic, a lot of them were losing money year over year. But somebody like Shift, I mean, it sounds like he did it right, was able to kind
Absolutely.
of prove it. And so I'm not saying that it couldn't be done. I mean, it just
Oh
would have
no.
been a lot of work,
Yeah, it was
and
going
you
to be a
would have
lot of
rocked it.
work. It would have a lot of
Yeah,
work, and it would have been successful. And but I chose not to pursue belief, and
yeah.
that's the difference, right? And we
I got a
oftentimes
similar
forget about
story.
that. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a similar story to yours. I had this idea, and it was a couple probably around the same time. And I wrote it all out, not like a full business plan, but it was a pretty good high level draft of what do I envision this company being. And what it was essentially, um, looking at delivery or Uber type services at the time, was it was going to be for hair salons, stuff like that, mobile salon service.
Very
Like,
cool.
hey, something just happened. I need a hairdresser now. I ended up having a lot of people were like, wow, that is amazing. That's a really good idea. The problem is that the level of the complication, because of state regulators and some of these things needed to be licensed. And it was kind of like, well, can't I do what Uber's doing? Because technically, you have a lot of states that are like, Ubers or taxi cab drivers. They've got, they're not just
That's right.
random friend. I'm like, all I'm doing is having a mom help out another mom. I'm connecting the dots for a
Hmm.
private gig.
Hmm.
That's how I was thinking. It just came down to, I tucked myself out of it with the fear
Man,
that unless I got money into it early on, that I wouldn't be able to keep up with the legal fees, because we would expect with that business and breaking the trends of how state regulators are, which I'm very pro. Like a lot of bad things about Uber, Lyft, a lot
absolutely.
of those
Yeah, yeah.
companies, but they broke, what I felt was monopoly on, transportation
They
systems,
changed. They created irreversible change, and thank
right?
goodness that there was a Bill Smith, because
Hmm.
I stopped pursuing belief. He didn't, and now
Yeah.
we have a better world, a more convenient world, a more sharing economy to live in, and that's
Hmm.
why it's so important to overcome sabotage and even self sabotage, because the things that we are pursuing can ultimately change the world, literally change the world. And a very practical example of that is Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs was
Oh, you've heard of
sabotaged.
him too.
Yeah, you heard of him, right? He
Yeah.
was sabotaged. I mean, he invited John Scully to be the CEO of Apple while he was doing the MacBook work and of the iMac work, and so he was going to launch this incredible thing. He was going to launch make the computer be able to hold a computer in your hand. It was big, it was audacious, it was revolutionary. But
Yeah.
John Scully said, "Listen, we just need to run a righteous business. We just need to
Right.
take products to the market and get a transaction." And because he was used to that kind of retail market, and he betrayed, to use Steve Jobs' word, him, and he threw Steve Jobs under the bus to his board. And Steve Jobs then acquired the skills necessary to protect his pursuits from sabotage going forward. And if he didn't acquire those skills, the kind that are documented in my book, we would never see the iPhone.
Right.
We would never have the MacBook Pro and more than that. I'm not talking about a product. We would lack a new tool that would change the way that we engage with the world and the way
Right.
that the world engage with us. And so it's
Right.
really important that we understand how to survive and overcome sabotage so that we and all of your listeners and viewers can make the same kind of impact in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And that's a really good, important story that I think you told there, because Steve Jobs is somebody that I think most people know who Steve Jobs is. I mean, maybe there's few young executives that really don't have a good idea. But most people that listen to the show definitely know who he is. When you can use somebody like that in an example, or, you were saying it earlier about how, your buddy, when you got that first $100,000 contract, that he was telling you about how Elon Musk is going to change the world, which I'll put on record. I was an Elon Musk hater most of my life, because it's like, no, why do people think this guy's smart? He's smart, but he's not that. What's he actually doing? He's trying, and you see all the negative press. And then, years later, it's like all this stuff that he's been working on, and I've been calling him, vaporware about, starts to actually come. Oh, wait, there's a rocket ship up there. Okay.
It's amazing how that happens.
So I have since taken everything back, and I've done some more research on Musk myself. And I will admit, I think he probably is one of my modern day heroes, because I think he is basically, I think, filling the role of what Steve Jobs did with Apple, but he's doing it on different products, whether it's Tesla, SpaceX. I mean, space innovation was pretty much dead up until you got companies like SpaceX out there. Right. Cars innovations. I mean, you had a Prius or some other things, but it was very slow to move along, technology in car, unless you were paying top dollar. And even with that, the technology in cars lagged years behind what was already on the consumer market.
Absolutely.
And we're only talking not even that long ago, like 7-8 years ago, where, it's like, try to find an actual full HD screen inside of a vehicle that would be, like a mid-level type car for a normal family. And it was near impossible. You might be lucky to have a screen for the radio, but that was about it.
That's right.
And it's people like his technology, his visionary, that having that competition makes it better for everybody, because Ford's innovated,
Absolutely.
Chevy, everybody has had to innovate because they're trying to stay ahead of what Elon's doing. And
yes. And I tell you this,
it's a great thing.
And I know you have some maybe you have some young viewers, and I want to provide some context that this is not new.
Right.
This is not new. And I mean, we live in a world where we see the shapers of our time, like Bill Gates, and we see Elon Musk at work, and we see Jeff Bezos at work, and others, and there are multiple others. Oprah Winfrey is a shaper.
Yeah,
and really, these shapers are people who don't disrupt industry more so than they redefine them.
Kind of like Shark Bite Biz is doing to the whole world,
to the
business
podcast
news.
world. Yep. I'm telling you.
There you go.
And it's not new. I mean, if you look at Nikola Tesla, and who was bold enough to say, I can harness the power of electricity to do bold things. Edison actually was not pursuing the invention of the light bulb for the light bulb's sake. He was actually, it was actually a tactical pursuit to address something bigger, and that is the invention of photography and phonography, and wanted to allow people to exchange memories with each other. I mean, think about how revolutionary that is, right? And we have the light bulb because of it, but we also have the camera because of it. Because
like the first video call was done, I think it was in the 60s or 70s. I mean, this is how having tech monopolies and stuff like that. On that time, it was a tech/telecom monopoly. I think the first call was done with AT&T, but think about that. They thought, oh, it'd be too expensive. The average household wouldn't want it.
We can stop ourselves.
And think about how much more advanced we could be right now if they would have pursued that. I mean, I think, I forget, it may have been Nixon or somebody in that time period, Nixon, Kennedy, around there, to where they did the first call, and I think it was a video call in the White House. I think it was, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I could be a little bit off in those details, but it did happen a long time ago. If they didn't stop us, how much innovation would we have? And that's part of the reason why This show, we don't get into politics per se, as far as what most people think of politics. The only thing we'll really address is regulation, business regulation,
Understood.
stuff like that part of it, because I think, I just read an article the other day over in Europe. What they want to do is make it so that a USB-C adapter is now mandatory in every new rechargeable device. Okay. And you would think that's cool because I do like standardization. Okay. My problem is what happens the moment that somebody makes something better than that?
Yeah.
Like, for example, Apple, I'm not a huge fan of the Lightning charger, but their Lightning charger, for example, or when they first came out with Thunderbolt adapters, it would take away that type of innovation because you are monopolizing the only type of port that they have, and therefore somebody cannot make something better. Should tech companies use USB-C by default right now? Yes, absolutely. If you're not, you're doing a disservice to your people, unless you have something that is better.
I will double down there and say that it is precisely the fear of change that that's one of the things that drive people to sabotage innovation. Because you have a listener and a viewer right now who's on the cusp of doing something great, or who's thinking about doing something great. And there are people all around the woodwork saying,
and to clarify, you're not talking about yourself, right?
No, I'm not talking about myself.
Okay. So there's another viewer out there.
There's another viewer out there.
Awesome.
And you just can't allow yourself to be stopped. It's the work is so consequential and is so utterly important that you must persist. And you must go through the barriers of sabotage, hurdle over them. Look, if you go to the bookstore today, before I wrote Sabotage, Leadership That Overcomes Betrayal, Theft, and Deceit, you would find business books lining the shelves, and they would talk about hard work, talk about rising early, talking about doing what you say you're going to do.
5 a.m.ers,
all of that. But as you wake up at 5 a.m. and go to work at 6:30 and you're the first one there, there's not many books in any that talks about the spook behind the door waiting to trip you up as soon as you walk over the threshold.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
How do you deal with that?
And that is, you know what? I'll be honest. I never thought about it from that angle up until you just said it right now like that. That is amazing. Now, we do got to get rolling. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. We should probably do a second episode.
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah. Well, time flies when you're having fun, man.
Absolutely.
So all our YouTube viewers can see this, but Brandon and his team somehow amazingly, because we only booked this interview like literally last week. Most of my other interviews are booked 6 to 9 months ahead of time. But we booked this like at the end of last week, and they got me a beautifully signed first press edition of his book, Sabotage. Why don't you tell us real quick exactly what your book's about, and then tell us where people can buy this?
Absolutely. Sabotage, Leadership That Overcomes Betrayal, Theft, and Deceit. It is a book. It is the most comprehensive book on the subject of leadership sabotage that there is. It prepares leaders to not only overcome sabotage in their pursuit to do something great, but to also see sabotage before it strikes them. So imagine being able to see the deceivers before you are deceived, and to see the betrayal before you are betrayed. I think that goes into what we were talking about earlier real quick too, just about, one eye in the present, one eye in the future. That also means like thinking about those things. And there are 4 things that you can look for. And in the book, they call them the 4 Horsemen of Sabotage. And I'll leave them with this freebie that if ever you see one of these horsemen come into your life, sabotage is about to happen. One is jealousy. The other one is arrogance. The other one is lying, and the other is seduction. And it is important to know the activities that those horsemen bring into our lives as a precursor for or canary in the coal mine that you need to start protecting in what you're pursuing. You can buy this book at brandonwilson.co. brandonwilson.co, but you could also do something else there. You can also tap into my management consultancy for free. You can book 30 minutes of my time at brandonwilson.co, share the barriers you're facing along your way to doing something great, share what you might be experiencing along your leadership journey, and I will share with you for free, no charge, 30 minutes, share with you insights to help you unlock the next levels of productivity waiting on you so that you can use your leadership to change the world.
Wow, that's amazing. The book, I've skimmed over it because I only got it literally got delivered last night.
That's right.
But this will be a book that I am 100% going to read. I'm sure, especially after our conversation, it'll be impossible for me to not get something helpful. I'm sure this is full of little gold nuggets for everybody. One thing I wanted to comment on, you said you're 4 Horsemen of Sabotage. Once I heard that, I was thinking, oh God, man, he's been talking to my marriage counselor.
Stop it. You are now shark bait.
Yeah, I am shark bait now. Okay, last question for you. I wanted to mention this earlier, but you're, so many different directions we could have gone during this conversation. But you mentioned about your first big sale, that $100,000 contract. Okay, this is a 2-part question. One is, did you get goosebumps signing that deal? And once you did, afterwards, do you still get goosebumps whenever you close a deal?
I do. I do, and I did. But but not necessarily about the money. It's about having an opportunity to challenge that client to do the audacious. And so there's a real example of this. And we're working right now with Apple. And we've actually encouraged.
Oh, that's why we keep getting all these Apple stories. Okay.
Some would say challenge Apple to do something different. And so now we're building a college campus of innovation in Atlanta. We're going to break ground very soon on an Apple built, and Southern Company is also participating on building a college campus focused on innovation. We're working with Apollo Global Management to help them with careerbuilder.com to launch a new career platform specifically for talent of color from historically Black colleges, universities. So every time we get a contract, it's not about the transaction. It's about the opportunity to use my leadership to encourage other leaders to collectively change the world. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. I mean, to me, I would say a lot of what you say is what I feel as well whenever I close a deal. But, because we're helping a business, that's, I guess you could say, the PC answer, okay?
Yeah.
Of what you should say. But when it comes down to it, I get goosebumps. I get the warm and fuzzies today because I'm #winning.
Winning.
Yeah, I am winning. I did a successful sales cycle, or my team did, and I earned their trust to be able to transform their business. So I look at, like I said, it's almost the same thing, but it's a little bit of a twist because, I mean, come on, a lot of sales-driven people, they have the egos. You got to play to the egos, that's how you have fun.
Well, I'm with you, but it is awesome. And really quick story before we close, the bad business deal and what I learned from it. It'll be 1 minute. I was doing well in business. I figured that I will start to grow by acquisition. I would buy other companies. Someone came into my life who was ready to sell me their business. And I would later find out a year and a half later that they really had no interest in selling at all. They really just wanted to use me for the due diligence portion of the deal to run their company. I believe so much in the deal that, against the advice of legal counsel, I gave $15,000 a month to a third entity, which will be a part of the asset sale. I get a call from my attorneys thousands of dollars later, hundreds of thousands of dollars later, and said, "Hey, Brandon, that entity doesn't exist. Where's your money going?" And so he calls me, we go and meet, I go and send the separation documents to the person, and he revealed himself as a bully. He said, "Listen, if you don't give me any more of my money, I'm going to kill your wife," is what he told me.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He said, "I would use my influence to get trumped up charges against you But I'm not interested in you going to jail. I want to get you a mugshot so that I can use my engine and my machine to paint you as a criminal and blackball you out of the industry.
Wow.
And that bully did it. And he did it. And that was the impetus of writing this book. I said, listen, I started talking to other leaders who were not as well resourced as me, who didn't have the lawyers that I have, who were not as equipped as I was to survive that sabotage. Right. And I said, it is up to me to use my experiences to give leaders the skills they need to deal with the type of sabotage that they may experience along their journey. From bullying to employee defiance, theft. We see it all the time. And my book, it gives you the tools needed to overcome those things.
Well, that is an amazing story. And when I say amazing, I don't mean it like, good job for getting bullied. No, I mean like amazing as far as like, holy cow, man. I mean, that is trippy. But what hearing that story and then the bad business deal and piecing that together with our earlier conversation, it just makes me respect you more, because a lot of people that are weaker would have completely pulled out. They would not be aggressive. They wouldn't be ballsy as far as doing business deals with fear out of, a repeat situation in the future, especially if they're threatening your wife like that, to destroy you. That is horrible. And oftentimes good things happen out of some of the worst things when you're into tragedy. And now we got your book to tell us how to deal with it.
And think about it. If you understand how to overcome or even defeat sabotage, you cannot be stopped. You actually become more audacious as a result of that. Right. And so that's the hope of the book.
Yeah, that's good. And hey, just because we did a little bit OT segment there, again, please don't forget to grab his book, Sabotage. We're going to have the links down below in the description. Pin comment on YouTube. Hey, Brandon, this was amazing. I hope you had fun.
I did. A blast.
Awesome. You are no longer shark bait. So you lasted. You didn't get eaten up. You did amazing. Thank you, sir. And best of success with your book.
Thank you so much, David.
Yep. Cheers. Wow, that was such a fun interview with Brandon, right? First, you all know the routine. If you found this interview helpful, if it sparked those warm and fuzzies, do me a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. But if you really want to help us out, because Shark Bite Biz is the greatest kept secret in the world of small business, please share us out to your friends, your colleagues, your family. Let the world know about Shark Bite Biz. Get us out there wherever you dwell on the interwebs, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever it is. Share this episode out. Help people find Brandon Wilson, the book Sabotage, and Shark Bite Biz. So now let's get back to our rock star guest, Brandon, and his awesome story. Couple quick points here. Like Brandon said, nobody is going to prepare you for a boss, an owner, a coworker that is going to try to sabotage your success. People can be evil, especially in the workplace. They have their own agenda, and that could be just, hey, they're looking out for their own financial security. Maybe they're just looking out for their own ego. People are notorious in the workplace for protecting their own situation and making you take a step back if you're going to outshine them. Do not let that happen to you. I think Brandon's amazing book is something that teaches you what other leadership books don't teach you. It's teaching you how to be better, how to be bigger, how to be the better person by overcoming betrayal, theft, and deceit. It's a cruel world out there. And I think sometimes we all forget that. We kind of get in a little bit of a comfort zone, I guess you could say. It's a dog-eat-dog world. Maybe I should say shark-eat-shark world. I mean, it is Shark Bite Biz, right? But don't get paranoid, though. Not everybody is out to get you. There are legit people that will help you and enable you throughout your career. But you also got to keep an eye out for those trying to hold hold you down. Okay? Amazing stories, Brandon. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. Please make sure you grab his book. I have it right here, Sabotage. He was kind enough to send me a signed copy. It is incredible. I've read it. I want to read it twice. That's how good the book is. So please make sure you grab his book, Sabotage. We're going to have the link down below in the description. We got some amazing episodes coming up. Okay, we got Tiffany Largie coming up of Do the Damn Thing Nation. Mike Bishop from the rock band, metal band, Gwar is going to be on here, and so many other talented people. Please make sure you subscribe to see some of the best business interviews around. Question of the day. Has somebody tried to sabotage your career? Leave a comment down below on YouTube. And remember, if you want to be on the show, shoot an email out to interviews@sharkbitebiz.com. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, join the channel. You can become a baby shark for only $3 a month, and it supports us. Otherwise, head on over to deadhousecoffee.com. Use code SHARK, get 20% off of your order, and you're going to get the freshest zombie-themed coffee. And when I say fresh, I'm saying fresh. It is roasted, sealed, and shipped all within a 24-hour period to your doorstep. That's deadhousecoffee.com. Use code SHARK. You get 20% off. We get all the proceeds to make this show bigger and better. You all know this by now, but hey, I'm David Strausser. This is Shark Bite Biz. We'll see you all next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Shark Bite Biz. We hope you got some insightful info from this podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us through your favorite podcast app and visit us on the web at www.sharkbitebiz.com. How has business changed for you in the 20s? Email us at podcast@sharkbitebiz.com so you can join us and share your story.